Hello, I'm doing a part two today to my story. I started sharing in my last video. Um, I kind of left off at the point of um, my parents getting a divorce, so I'll try to pick up there. And again, this kind of stuff is still kind of difficult for me to talk about because I still have this tendency to feel like my life just wasn't as bad as other people's. I've heard a lot of people that talk about having it so much worse than me, and in a lot of ways, I had some things better than people. So it is kind of hard to talk about, but um, I mean, I think it's good to kind of go over it and explain it to people too. So anyway, so my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. That's pretty much where I left off. Um, the dynamic of everything kind of changed. Me and my sister had to go to a new school. Um, we moved to a new city. We moved to a new house. There were a lot of big changes all at once, and they were pretty hard on me. I think my sister kind of adjusted a little bit better than me, but she got into high school and she just she started going out with friends and staying out more and more, and so I didn't really have her around to hang out with anymore. And and in my new school, I didn't really have any friends. Not many people would talk to me, and it felt like people just didn't like me, didn't want to give me a chance. And um, I guess sometimes that goes along with being new. But anyway, I had a really hard time adjusting to the new city we went to. The new house we were in was pretty nice, but my mother and my stepdad, or now he was my stepdad, decided that they wanted to move into a different house in the town that we were in. So we had to move to a different house about a year after they got married, and I didn't really like the new house. I couldn't adjust to it very well. I um my my parents, um when I say parents now, I'm referring to my mother and my stepdad. Um, I just kind of started calling them parents after the divorce. But so mother and stepfather decided that the way the house was laid out, that me and my sister should live in the basement. And it wasn't like a really bad looking basement. It just it had the typical characteristics of a basement as far as being kind of uncomfortable, and like there's a lot of moisture, and just colder than the rest of the house sometimes, things like that. It just wasn't really a comfortable place to be. And then really, I guess I'll focus more on the dynamic of the relationship. Like um me and my sister weren't talking as much. Like I said, we weren't hanging out as much. And before the divorce, she was kind of the messenger between me and my mother. Like she just wouldn't really talk to me directly much. It seemed like her and my sister got along better. I so if my mother ever needed to tell me something, it came from my sister. And so because my sister wasn't there as much, my mother started, I guess, talking to me more directly, and she just seemed really angry. And I think I said this a little bit in the last video. Like um I can't say that she was necessarily more angry than she used to be, because um, when I was growing up and it was before the divorce, I remember some situations where she would come in our room, and she'd find toys that I stuffed under the bed, and she'd just scream at me about it. And I remember she would just scream for so long that I would just start to cry, and like I just didn't understand. And my mother would scream at me to clean my room and get everything out from under the bed, and she just degrade me over and over while she was taking the stuff out from under the bed. I don't know why you do this. I don't know what's wrong with you. Um, and then she'd just leave the room, no remorse and no apology. And so my sister would just try to hug me and hold me and kind of comfort me when those things would happen. So, you kind of already knew that she had some anger back then. Um, and I believe I like when me and my sister would sometimes see her and my dad fight, and they would well, my mother would get so angry that she'd throw a chair at him. So like I knew that she was kind of physically violent. She would throw things and stuff like that. That was kind of something I was already familiar with. But after the divorce, and I know I've already said, but so my sister was gone, my dad's gone. It's kind of really just me, my mother, and my stepdad. And the way that I guess she was, the family dynamic, I can't exactly explain to you why, but the way that things were, she just didn't really take out much of her anger on my stepdad. For some reason, it all came on to me. Now, I can't speak for him. He may probably feel differently, but um, there were many times I remember like she would get really angry with me and she'd just start screaming at me and she would scream and scream and it would just go on and there was nothing that you could say or do to get it to stop. I remember sometimes even saying to her, "Why are you screaming?" And she'd scream right back that she wasn't screaming. And my stepdad was always in another room. He was always somewhere else. He just wasn't usually in the room when this kind of stuff was going on. So she became extremely verbally abusive. She was just always angry, and um, she raised her voice constantly to me. She screamed at me, like I said, it was a regular thing. There were situations sometimes like I would. I remember a situation where we had a I guess a Christmas tree topper. I'm not sure what you call it, but we had an angel Christmas tree topper, and we had a Christmas tree topper in the shape of a star. And I remember I just loved the star so much, and we almost never used it. So every Christmas I would ask her, "Can we use the star this year? Can we use the star?" And she'd always say something like, "Well, maybe," and then she'd always pick whatever she wanted. She'd pick the angel topper every year. She No matter what I said, she'd always pick the angel, and it deeply hurt me because I didn't understand why. She never wanted to pick the one I did. And there were other things. I remember a lot of situations where we'd get in the car, and I don't know what she was upset about, but she'd just start screaming at me, and I remember situations where it was so bad that I felt my I felt like I went outside my body. Um, and I was just in so much pain, mentally, going through that kind of stuff. Um and she just never had any remorse. I don't know if you've ever heard anything about narcissists and psychopaths and stuff like that, but a common thing is they just don't have any remorse. And you know um that was one thing I just remember, um especially when we would have conflicts and things like that. There just wasn't any remorse, and there was never an apology. And she didn't even really seem like she felt bad about it, or she didn't even seem like she felt sorry. It would just She'd just stay angry for long periods of time. And she had a lot of problems with, like, I, I don't want this to sound bad, but I call them, I don't know what else to call them, but like basic parental obligations. Like, making food for your child, things like that. Like, she just every time I asked her to make food for me, she would just get very angry, and it seemed like she felt like I should not be asking her to make food. Um, she kind of she kind of had this behavior that was kind of typical. She'd frown immediately if I asked her. Um, she'd sigh really loudly. She'd do a lot of things that kind of told you that she was angry at you for asking to for her to make some food. Um, she also didn't like to hear any kind of, I say, criticism. Maybe it was more like constructive criticism about her food. Like, I think she just had a habit of sometimes making the same thing um, several days in a row, and I just had a hard time eating the same things over and over. And if I ever tried to say, "Can we have something else?" she would just kind of say, "Well, you're on your own with food tonight, if that's how you feel about it, you know." So you kind of learn just not to say anything. Um, but I developed a lot of bad eating habits because I didn't feel like I could speak up to her about food, and and uh, there were situations where she seemed to want to like, I don't know how else to say it except find things to be angry with me about. I know that's probably a big assumption, but just to give you an explanation, there were times where I would be on the phone downstairs, and her bedroom was upstairs, her and my stepdad's bedroom upstairs. And, it would be late at night, and, I'd be thinking that she was in bed, and I'd be on the telephone downstairs. And um, the way the house was positioned is where, like, if you were at the stairs, you could hear probably anything going on the bottom floor, unless somebody was in their room with their door closed. But I was like in the entertainment area where there wasn't a door, so I'm on the phone talking to somebody, and I remember saying a cuss word to him, and I thought I heard something on the stairs, but it was dark. I didn't see a light on, nothing. Like, you had to typically turn on the light to come down the stairs. So I was like, oh, well, it must be my imagination. Well, I get off the phone, and I start walking to my room, and as I pass through the stair area where it's pitch black dark, I hear my mother say to me, "Who were you on the phone with?" And I was just kind of like shocked, like, well, why is she sitting there in the dark? And anyway, the she proceeds to have a conversation with me about how I shouldn't be saying bad words in her house on the phone. And it felt like she had been sitting there listening to me in the dark to try to find something to get on to me about. And I mean, I guess she always found something, I mean, I think that's what was frustrating, um, that, like, it just, there were times when she would accuse me of things that I don't think were true, but there were times when she would always find something to back up her reasoning. There was a situation one time where I was sneaking out of the house and going to see a guy about um, 45 minutes away or something, and um, and I think my parents figured something was going on. And one day I come home, and my mother just tells me that they've been um, tracking my mileage, putting my starting mileage at the beginning of the day and my ending mileage at the end of the day. And they know that I've been up to something because, I'm going too far from just school and back. So, you know, um, they're confronting me, and yes, I was doing something that they didn't like, but that's how things were approached. Um, and I know I'm going on a bit long, but just trying to wrap it up here. Um, Another example is when I was when I was in school, I drove my car to school every day, and we had a two-car garage, and we had three cars, and a lot of times, like I think my stepdad would want to keep his car in the garage, and my mother wanted her car in the garage, and they kind of looked at it like it was a privilege for me to keep my car in the garage, because if you ever had a garage, when you wake up early in the morning, it's nice that the car's already in there because it's already warmer. So, so I would leave for school, and if I didn't shut the garage behind me, I had to keep my car outside in the cold, while my stepdad kept his car inside the garage for a week. That was kind of my punishment. I was always punished and never really communicated with about what was really going on. And I remember there was this one time where I left for school, and I remember halfway down the road that I needed to close the garage, so I turned back around real quick to try to close the garage, but it was already closed. And that night, my mother was sitting there telling me, "Well, you didn't close the garage this morning. You're gonna have to stay outside." And I just said to her, "Well, I tried to turn around and come back, and it was already closed." And I could tell she almost didn't believe me. She was almost gonna make me do it anyway. But it was weird because it felt like she was somehow satisfied, before I told her that I came back. She was satisfied that she had caught me, um, not putting the garage door down. And there were several times I would wake up too early in the morning and be tired, and I'd accidentally run into the garage um, with my car. I think that happened about three times. And they would just get so mad. Well, my mother would just get so mad. She was like, "Well, you can't use the garage anymore." And there was just never really understanding, no helpfulness. And I know I've gone on a while, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up here. And so this will probably be, I'll probably have several parts to this story, I'm thinking now, just because there's just so many details I keep thinking of when I'm in the middle of the video. So I'll go ahead and start working on the next parts of this story. And I appreciate you watching. Thank you. Have a nice day.